What's up, guys? So Alec Baldwin has actually sued the crew members of Rust in a court filing that's called a cross complaint. So he is sued as a defendant, and now he's suing someone else, some of the crew members, in the same lawsuit. And today we're going to break down that cross complaint. All right, we've got the cross complaint of Alexander Baldwin for negligence, indemnification, and contribution. Here's all the defendants. And here is actually who he is suing. So right here, there he is. He's suing Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, David Halls, Seth Kenny, PDQ, Arm Prop LLC, and Sarah Zachary. So it starts out with saying what it is. It's a cross complaint from Alec Baldwin against these other individuals that we just named. And now we're going to go through the nature of the case. On October 21st, 2021, an accidental shooting took the life of cinematographer Helena Hutchins on a movie set just outside Santa Fe, New Mexico. Baldwin was holding the gun that shot the bullet, which discharged while rehearsing a scene after Baldwin pulled back and then released the hammer. This tragedy occurred on a movie set, not a gun range, not a battlefield, not a location where even a remote possibility should exist that a gun would contain live ammunition. So right here, he's already building his story. So a good trial lawyer will build a story from start to finish, and it starts at the outset with the first filed documents. It doesn't start at the end at trial. It doesn't start in the middle. It starts from the very beginning, telling that story. And so let me know in the comments, do you think they're telling this story for a strategy of trial, or are they telling this story so to take some of the blame off of Alec Baldwin and to paint him in the light most favorable of the public? Are they doing it more as a publicity stunt? Let me know what you think. But he's saying that the tragedy occurred on a movie set, so not a gun range, live ammunition should be there. Not a battlefield, live ammunition should be there. Not a location where even a remote possibility should exist that a gun would contain live ammunition. So he's already painting the picture that he should have had no idea that there should have been, or that there was live ammunition on the set. So he's already painting that picture. It occurred under the supervision of a professional armorer, Gutierrez-Reed, so she's the armorer on the set, and first assistant director Halls, who were hired to protect the actors and crew on set. This tragedy happened because live bullets were delivered to the set and loaded into the gun. Gutierrez-Reed failed to check the bullets or the gun carefully. Halls failed to check the gun carefully, yet announced the gun was safe before handing it to Baldwin. So first he says Gutierrez-Reed failed to check the bullets or the gun carefully. It's her fault. It's Gutierrez-Reed's fault. Second, it's Hall's fault. He should have checked the gun carefully and yet announced the gun was safe before handing it to Baldwin. So he said that the gun was safe, saying that he's checked it and it's safe. And Zachary failed to disclose that Gutierrez-Reed had been acting recklessly offset and was a safety risk to those around her. So that's the whole basis liability, it seems like, that he is saying on Zachary. So just because she failed to disclose that information, she should be liable for this whole incident. So that's an interesting take on it. We'll have to hear more about that. But what do you think about that? I mean, he's putting all the blame on Gutierrez-Reed, Halls, who's saying they didn't check the gun and gave it to me, said it was fine. But he didn't check the gun either. What do you think about that? I think he's just putting the blame on the other people and trying to take it off of himself. Do I think the other individuals are still liable? Yes, but I still think he's liable as well. Baldwin did not know and had no reason to know any of these facts, but cross-defendants did. Kenny and PDQ were the principal ammunition suppliers, so there's their liability. They supplied the ammunition, so maybe they mixed up and gave live ammunition instead of dummy ammunition. Gutierrez-Reed was the armorer who was responsible for all of the ammunition. Halls was the safety officer on set, so Halls was responsible for all the safety. Obviously, it was not safe on set. And Zachary was the prop master. These cross-defendants are professionals who owed a duty to those on set, including Baldwin, to keep the set safe. Everyone on set, including Baldwin, expected and trusted them to do so. Hutchins never would have instructed Baldwin to point the gun in her direction and pull the hammer back if she thought the slightest possibility existed that it was loaded. So Hutchins told Alec Baldwin to point the gun at her and pull back the hammer. Do you think she would have said that if she knew that Alec Baldwin didn't check the gun either? Something to think about. Baldwin, who shared the same state of mind as Hutchins in that critical moment, wouldn't have done so under such conditions. Duh. Who would have? There can be no doubt that others have suffered from cross-defense negligence far more than Baldwin has. It's good that he said that because obviously Helena Hutchins has passed. Oh, there we go. He goes on. Hutchins lost her life, and her young child lost his mother. I mean, that's quite a bit more than what Baldwin has lost. Producer Joel Souza was shot in the shoulder and has suffered physical and emotional pain. Someone else who's probably lost more than Alec Baldwin, though by no means comparable. I'm glad he put that. Baldwin must live with the immense grief and the resulting emotional, physical, and financial toll that caused by the fact that cross-defense negligence conduct, assurances, and supervision put a loaded weapon in his hand that led him, Hutchins, and everyone else to believe that his directed use of the weapon was safe. So, he's painting himself as the victim in this situation. He's saying, I'm the victim. I have suffered immense grief. Which honestly, if I was his lawyer, I'd be arguing the same thing. Because now he has to live the rest of his life knowing that he pulled the trigger that caused the death of Helena Hutchins. I would not be surprised if he's in counseling now. And he has to live with that for the rest of his life. Now you can get into an argument of how long is he going to live. And that goes into the damages aspect of it. But he has to live with that for the rest of his life. That is not something that I can even comprehend, knowing what it would feel like. And the resulting emotional, physical. So obviously he's saying he suffered emotional, immense grief. The physical, now these emotional, the immense grief could be showing up in a physical way. Maybe he's lost weight. Maybe he has not gotten near as much sleep as he usually does. Some things like that cause a physical effect and financial toll. So probably he missed other movies because he's been having to deal with this, or other movies backed out of having Alec Baldwin on the set because of this whole situation. So those are the things that he's saying he has suffered. Now, it's good that up here he said he hasn't suffered near as much as some other people, but he still suffered. So by these cross claims, Baldwin seeks to clear his name. So he wants to clear his name as well. Sometimes lawsuits are filed to clear people's names. Are they sometimes profitable? If they're solely for clearing someone's name, usually not. But nevertheless, we move on. The parties. Baldwin from New York. And this is talking about where they're from. Baldwin is informed and believes, under the belief that Gutierrez Reed was the armorer and assistant props master. So these are the positions that they held. Halls was the first assistant director for the Rust production. Kenny was the armorer assistant and or the armorer mentor for the Rust production. Kenny also supplied ammunition and prop weapons to the Rust production. Cross defendant Kenny is the owner of PDQ, which is a prop weapon and ammunition supply store. So that's where Kenny's real issue comes in. Zachary was the props master for the Rust production. So he's putting them all together and believes all of them have liability in some aspect or another. Let's see. We're going to skip the jurisdictional issues. Background. Rust is conceived. So in this section, they go through how they came up with the idea of Rust and how it all came together that Alec Baldwin was on set. Baldwin is an actor and producer over 100 films. I didn't know he was in that many. I definitely haven't seen. I've maybe seen probably no more than 10. But in 2018, Baldwin partnered with Souza on a draft script for a Western movie. Baldwin previously talked with Souza to be in the film, but wasn't able to because of scheduling conflicts. In this story, in this Western Rust, tells a story of a young boy who accidentally kills a local rancher. Interesting. The irony in that. Anyways. And is sentenced to hang in 1880s Kansas. Hopefully that's not foreshadowing of Alec Baldwin's situation. Likelihood of that is very slim. Could they bring criminal charges? Yes. Do I think they will? Yes, but definitely not life sentence. So, although Baldwin was not specifically looking for a Western film, he attracted to the Rust project because it offered an opportunity to work with Sousa on something Baldwin had increasingly became interested in, making films in which dialogue takes a backseat to cinematography, a film in which the camera tells the story. And in drafting this petition, if I was his lawyer, I would definitely have taken Alec Baldwin up on helping draft this cross complaint, because obviously he's a actor and knows how to tell a story, and that is exactly what they're doing in this. So I would definitely use my client in that situation. Most clients, I wouldn't use them for that, but in this situation, I'd definitely consider that. So they're painting Baldwin out to be a guy who's doing this so that the cinematography could be the one that could really tell the story. So painting him continually in the light, giving back to the community to give them this wonderful production that people could enjoy and enhance people's lives. Baldwin collaborated with Sousa on writing the script and was given story by credit for his work. Great. Could have left that out. Rust Production obtains financing, forms a budget, and hires a crew. Throughout 2019 through 2021, Baldwin engaged in discussions with Sousa and Rust's team of producers, moving Rust forward from concept to execution. Rust had 6 producers. There they are. Smith individually and through his production company, Rust Movie Productions, was primarily responsible for the day-to-day operations. So, right here, he's setting himself apart. He's saying, I didn't have anything to do with it. It was all of them. They had the day-to-day operations. I had no control over who was there, how things were done. I was just there as an actor, and I was doing my job. So he's trying to put the blame on other people. Smith and the other producers pitched Rust to investors, secured financing, set a budget, Smith and his associate Gabriel Pickle hired the crew for Rust. So right here, there's a theory that's called negligent hiring. There's also negligent entrustment, negligent training, supervision. But right here, he's trying to separate himself and saying that the Rust set, the crew members, negligently hired probably the armorer, the safety director. So, and he's trying to separate himself from them, saying they're the ones who decided these things. I had no part in this. What do you think about that argument? Let me know. Baldwin's only involvement in Rust's finances was his forfeiture of his own fees. Wow, what a nice guy. So right here, again, he's painting himself in the light most favorable to him, that he gave back to the production to enhance the budget. Baldwin's total compensation package, starring and producing, was set at $250,000. Measly. That's probably not very much to him. Anyways. However, Baldwin gave back $100,000 as an investment, and he had offered additional $37,500 from his fees. What a nice guy. On September 13th, 2019, Nigam wrote to Baldwin's office that he was checking on the status of the script, as I have several financing avenues that are waiting on it. While the other producers handling financing and budget matters for film, Baldwin was consulted about the creative aspects of Rust marketing, such as artwork for teaser poster preparation. Baldwin also worked closely with Sousa on casting decisions, reaching out to other actors regarding taking roles. As filming neared, Baldwin received information updates about basic logistical matters, such as scheduling and location of filming. So he's just saying, I didn't have any idea beforehand. I just went where they told me to do and went where they told me to go and did what they told me to do. So again, separating himself. For example, on August 31st, Baldwin's office received an email from a producer, Winterstern, regarding filming dates and locations. Again, separating himself. They're the ones handling the logistics, not me. It's interesting that they had an email in this, and I think they have some more emails. So usually you don't keep emails in complaints or cross complaints. When a film's budget allows, Baldwin usually brings along his own group of professionals, with whom he has worked frequently. However, when Baldwin is involved in films with smaller budgets like Rust, he makes every effort to sacrifice some of his ordinary accommodations in his contract to help the budgeting of the film. In these circumstances, he does not have authority to choose the crew or otherwise direct the non-creative aspects of the film. So again, he's saying there's two things that he's doing here. One, he's saying he sacrificed to even be here. He gave up what he would normally have. The second part of it is still separating himself, that he didn't have anything to do with the logistics. Baldwin's correspondence regarding Rust establishes that he was introduced to crew members shortly before filming began and did not play a role in their hiring. There it is. He's separating himself from a negligent hiring claim, negligent hiring theory. And he's saying the first time he met the people that were on the set, the crew members, was shortly before filming. So he didn't have any role in choosing or interviewing or anything like that. For example, Baldwin was introduced to the head of Rust's makeup department, Stacy Lockhart, just weeks before filming began, and I guess they're emailing his usual makeup artist to find out what he likes. Baldwin was introduced to Rust's costume designer. Same thing. He's attaching these emails again to separate himself. Email correspondence with Davis further shows that Baldwin affirmatively requested gun training by the crew member responsible for firearms on the Rust set long before filming began. That is huge. That shows that he was concerned about the safety and that he was making sure that the crew members were trained properly. That is pretty big, in my opinion. Let me know what you think, but I think that takes, it always comes down, does Alec Baldwin still have liability? Should he still have checked to see if the gun was loaded? My opinion, yes. But it might be an industry standard that actors shouldn't. And I think they get into that later, but you could hire an expert and they could set that standard, and that's a way around it. But the first thing I learned when I was going through a hunter safety course from my dad was treat every gun like it's loaded and always check to see if it's loaded. Whenever someone hands you a gun, always check to see if it's loaded. So on information belief, Rust, in September 12th email noted that he wanted to ask you to find out who is in charge of guns on this movie set and to get him some shooting lessons. So I don't know who he's referring to getting shooting lessons, whether it's him, Alec, or the armor, but find out who's in charge of the guns on this movie. He was unaware that the film had not yet hired an armor. So that shows that he didn't have any involvement in hiring that. Here it is. He wanted to ask you to find out who's in charge of guns on this movie and get him some shooting lessons. Again, I don't know who he's referring to for shooting lessons. He also mentioned that whoever's in charge of gun belts should research to see if they had shoulder holsters because he would prefer that to a big waist belt. That's interesting. He's thinking far ahead that to make sure that they had shoulder holsters in whenever this is taking place. So, interesting. Consistent with Baldwin's actual involvement with the film, his agreement with Rust's movie production makes clear that Baldwin and his company would have only a creative role in Rust production. For example, Section 6 of the contract, a tie break on all creative decisions goes to El Dorado Pictures, Inc. Interesting. I don't think they attached the contract. I wish they did. Rust movie production shall have final determination with respect to any creative decision that will result in a material increase. So that might be the budget. That might be the armor. But what Baldwin is doing is saying he didn't have control over the logistics, the budget, and that kind of thing. Again, continuing to separate himself from the others who he believes to have most, if not all, of the liability. The hiring of Gutierrez Reed. So this is where he talks about the armor and how it was a negligent hiring. Baldwin had no role in hiring Gutierrez Reed, so he's already separating himself at the outset of this section that he had no role in hiring her. He did not know she was being considered as armor and didn't recommend her. So if he said, hey, I've been on a set where she was there, she does a great job, that could be used against him. But he says he didn't even recommend her. So it's good that he threw that in there. And all of this stuff would really come out in a deposition as well. Instead, Gutierrez-Reed had reached out to Kenny to ask whether he knew of any available armors. So Gutierrez-Reed was asking if there are any jobs openings. So that goes into, what did Kenny do to hire an armor? Did he look for the best? Did he do a background check on Gutierrez-Reed? Did he talk to her recommendations on other sets that she's worked for? What did he do? And we'll find out if we get a deposition of Kenny. So, and I guess Zachary ultimately hired her, or the production managers, but they were just passing her name along. Procurement of the ammunition and prop weapons. Zachary and Gutierrez-Reed were responsible for sourcing and procuring the weapons and ammunition used on the rest of set. So they're responsible for making sure it's the dummy in the gun, the dummy bullets. Kenny and his company, PDQ, were primarily responsible, or were the primary weapons and ammunition supplier for Rust. So Kenny and PDQ, there's their main liability. They could have mixed up the ammunition. In early October 2021, Zachary and Gutierrez-Reed met with Kenny to collect the prop weapons and dummy ammunition to be used on Rust. Police photos show Kenny's business PDQ, what they would have encountered on their premises. Dang. That is pretty messy. And for something that is so important in a film, like whether it's live ammunition or dummies, I would not want them to be mixed up in there. It does not look very organized. That looks like a college dorm. Sometimes it looks like my room, but ammunition, much of it is unlabeled and strewn throughout. We got dummies right here. Who knows what these are? Who knows what this is on the left? Live ammunition and dummy rounds were stored haphazardly. Lead. It's not very organized. Can we see what these say? 38. I can't read the rest of them. Live ammo. Let's get rid of this thing. Jeez. Live ammo, 1883. So we got live ammo in there. Who knows what these are? That looks real. As professional suppliers of dummy and blank ammunition, Kenny and PDQ were required to carefully store, segregate, and label, and organize. That is all important. Ammunition to ensure that live ammunition did not become intermingled with dummy and blank rounds, which is what happened in this case, or likely what happened. I don't think anyone intentionally put a live round in there. Maybe they did, but they failed to do so. Instead, Kenny and PDQ stored inventory without proper label, segregation, or organization. I would say those photos are not what I would want live and dummy ammunition to be around. Looks pretty messy. They failed to do so. According to Kenny's insurance company, Farmers Insurance, after Mr. Kenny and his business tendered their defense to Farmers. So Kenny has insurance, it's Farmers, and Farmer is hiring his attorneys for him and probably PDQ. Mr. Kenny's attorney suggested that PDQ had operated from the property. Specifically, he said Mr. Kenny communicated his willingness to be part of the Rust production, negotiated the terms of that participation, sent the gun and ammunition involved in the incident, and sent invoices for that gun and ammunition from the property. Now, he's saying that his lawyer suggested that, not that he did, or there's no affidavit or sworn statement. So it's actually really weird that he would put another attorney's statements in here unless he was suing the attorney, but he's not. So that's weird. The FBI, and that's the nice thing about these cases that are larger scale is you actually have organizations like the FBI investigating it. On some cases, I am doing the investigating. I am going to get video cameras, surveillance cameras, witness statements. And on something this level, FBI will probably take care of almost it all. So that's really nice. But the FBI analyzed a substantial amount of ammunition that was collected from the rust, found dozens of live cartridges. Live. Where is this? Top cart. So on the cart, there's live ammunition. Cartridges. It looks like these are all in the same one, and there's live ammunition mixed in with the dummy ones. That is not good. I wonder what these are that are blanked out. So there's live and dummy all mixed together, it looks like. The results clearly show that live ammunition ended up on the rust prop cart. So it's pretty surprising that there's actually live ammunition on the prop cart that they were using for the set. It also ended up in his bandoiler. That's not good either. Just use a blank. He's not even going to be reaching for those bullets. That's ridiculous that there's even live ammunition. See the silver in there. The FBI report on the incident shows multiple cartridges seized on the premises during the execution of the search warrant, and that ammunition was commingled on the premises. Why even have live ammunition there? Kenny also submitted cartridges to the police and contained live ammunition. Also, prop supplier Kenny PDQ should not have stored live ammunition on the same disorganized premises, let alone commingled it. Yeah, duh. But really, they should have separated them and had them in totally different buildings. If they needed them there, I could see why they would need live ammunition there. If they needed to actually shoot live rounds for a scene where they're not shooting it at anyone or nothing like that. But they should definitely first separate it, clearly label it, organize it, and even have live ammunition at one premises and dummies at another. Obviously, that wasn't the case. Baldwin arrives on the set, receives gun safety training, and begins filming. The day after he arrived, Baldwin had training with Gutierrez Reed. So Gutierrez Reed actually trained Baldwin. Training lasted around 90 minutes. It's pretty fast. And they might be thinking, oh, he's been in movies, he knows this stuff. We don't need to go over it. During this session, Gutierrez Reed reminded Baldwin of gun safety measures he had learned at substantially similar gun trainings throughout his career. So, he's been in other movies. He's had training. So she's just reminding him. Such as always putting the gun down immediately once cut, it's called, and not to force the gun if it jams. Who would force a gun if it jams? I don't know. Anyways, but Gutierrez Reed did not instruct Baldwin to check the gun himself. So Baldwin is saying that Gutierrez Reed never told him to check the gun himself to make sure that it was not loaded with live ammunition. In fact, she told Baldwin that it was her job to check the gun, not his. So did she say it was her job, or did she say it's not your job? Because honestly, my opinion, he should have checked it. Doesn't relieve him of checking the gun as well. So, similarly, Baldwin believed, based on prior gun safety training he received on movie sets, that actors should not unilaterally check guns for live ammunition. This is where an expert would be handy in telling a jury and a court what the industry standard was for checking to see if there was live ammunition. If actors want to check a gun, but the other thing is he could have had Gutierrez Reed say, hey, come here, even if he wasn't allowed to check it. Come here, show me that there's no live ammunition in it. She does it right in front of him. We're set. He doesn't do it. Gutierrez Reed does it, and we're set. If actors want to check a gun for their own peace of mind, they should check the gun only with the armor closely supervising the process. Okay, so he can even check it, brings a supervisor over, or the armor, to supervise it. But I mean, even better yet, just have the armor do it right in front of you and show you. Baldwin had been told during prior gun safety trainings that a gun must be rechecked and cleared by the armor if the actor unilaterally checks the gun without the armor's supervision. So he's again separating himself. It's them. It's not me. Don't look at me. And Baldwin followed Gutierrez Reed's instructions during the gun safety training throughout his time on the Rust set. Soon after arriving, Baldwin had dinner. They did not discuss the logistics, is what he's saying. They didn't discuss safety at the dinner. Nothing like that. The morale on the set was good. Good job. He wasn't the one sending out the email, it was someone else. Baldwin never became aware of safety concerns. Baldwin had a brief conversation with Lane, camera assistant. I don't know if that's Looper or Lupper. So we're just going to go with Lane. Camera assistant on the Rust crew. Lane thanked Baldwin for his support on social media of the IATSE, the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, which had been threatening a strike. Baldwin told Lane that if they did indeed go on strike, Screen Actors Guild would strike in solidarity. So again, painting Baldwin in a light that's favorable to him, saying, I'm the good guy, don't blame me. Also, do you think he's doing this for his criminal case? Do you think he's filing this cross complaint to set up evidence and even show the public that it's not me, it's them, go after them? Let me know what you think. I mean, parts of this are pretty convincing. During their conversation, Lane told Baldwin that the set of Rust had some problems. The only problem mentioned was the hotel. I mean, honestly, you're out shooting a film. There's probably not the nicest hotels out there. And that's what you're complaining about? Anyways. What they go on to say is they didn't mention anything about gun safety. Baldwin asked Lane if he would be willing to, just talking about. Oh, again, Baldwin was even willing to pay for the hotel situation out of his own compensation. Wow, what a nice guy. He goes on. Now, if that's true, he really is. I mean, I have no reason to believe that it's not true. He seems like a pretty generous guy. But the reason for putting it in this is to show, wow, Alec's such a good guy, which they are doing pretty convincingly and sprinkling that throughout. We're not going to read the script. The morning of, they were rehearsing and how they broke for lunch, and Gutierrez Reed took the gun from Baldwin. Gutierrez Reed relieved Baldwin of the weapon most of the time. Due to space limitations on set, Gutierrez Reed was asked to clear the set after checking the weapons. In Gutierrez Reed's absence, Baldwin was relieved of the weapon by Halls. So Halls actually took it. He was also responsible for handling guns on the set. Gutierrez Reed relieved Baldwin of the gun shortly before lunch. Chain of mistakes happened. The key responsibility of the armor and the props master is to ensure the security and safety of gun, ammunition, props. Duh. Zachary and Gutierrez Reed arrived on Rust set to find that a full box of dummy ammunition had mysteriously disappeared. Red flag. That's the first red flag that we see. Zachary knew about Gutierrez Reed misplacing things and mixing them up. And the fact that he already knew that, and if they have evidence of that, then that could be bad, because that's one of her big responsibilities, keeping it organized. Crew members have also since reported Gutierrez Reed took the prop guns to a shooting range where she loaded them with live ammunition and did target practice. Why? This is not your job. Maybe it is, but I doubt it. That's crazy. Gutierrez Reed professes to have no knowledge as to the origins of this ammunition. The live ammunition. As Gutierrez Reed stated in her complaint against Kenny, she was happy that they had a full box of dummy rounds to work with because Sarah, as a prop manager, had brought dummy boxes to the set in the past as part of her duties. Gutierrez Reed didn't think any more of it at the time. Regardless, Gutierrez Reed and Zachary maintained a workspace that was recklessly disorganized. And here's the photos of the cart, and they've got live and dummy ammunition on it, which is crazy. Like, who knows what's in that? Loose ammunition, like, why aren't they labeled? Why aren't they in a box? Just everywhere. Storing ammunition in an organized manner offers an important layer of security. I would agree with that. And apparently, they failed to secure weapons. Maybe that's the butt of a weapon. There's a gun right there. Police photos confirm that guns were also stored and loaded. Well, that ain't good either. Another egregious safety violation. So he's just continually building up his case against the other crew members, saying, look, they were operating recklessly. This never would have happened if they didn't do that, which is true, but also would have never happened if he would have checked the gun. So there's loaded guns. Even the Ben Doyler had live ammunition. That's wild. That's live. See the silver. Those must come from the belt. That's crazy. Like, why even have... What? And why not check? This is crazy. This is such a mess. Specifically, the FBI report concluded double-base smokeless powder was identified in the cartridge. Negligently performed their duties. Seems like it. An armorer must check each round to ensure that it is a dummy round. So there he's setting the duty that they have. And in negligence, you have 4 elements: duty, breach, causation, and damages. Obviously, he seems like he has damages. And obviously, they had a duty. What he's doing is setting the duty right here. In this cross complaint, he sets that they breached that duty, and that breach of duty caused these damages. Dummy rounds are distinguishable. So he talks about how they're distinguishable and sets the duty right here. And also, which is really interesting, FBI confirms that Gutierrez Reed's fingerprints were on the ammunition from Baldwin's weapon that was loaded. Before loading the weapon, Gutierrez Reed claims that she only shook the ammunition box and heard a jiggling sound, which is what a dummy round box should sound like. Why not go the extra step to be safe and check them? She says she checked each one, but while checking, she noticed that one of the rounds lacked a hole in the casing. That's probably another red flag. Yes, she didn't remove it. Prevent the gun from being used, or prevent it from being used, or alert anyone to it. This is a mess. Apparently, the 6th and final round would not go into the gun because the gun was dirty. That could be a problem as well. So apparently she cleaned it, which brought the total and put another round in it. Put the total at 6. So she went to clean it. That's probably where she snuck the live ammunition in. And she says she didn't really check the gun given to Baldwin too much. Red flag. She opened it up and one of the dummies had been discharged. She admitted to the sheriff that when the gun was checked, projectile portion of the discharge round was gone. In the afternoon, the cast returned from the rehearsal. We have a cold gun on set. So Halls was saying, we've got a cold gun. It's not loaded. We're good. Cold gun was widely accepted as blank rounds, no live rounds were loaded into the gun. Nothing's in it. Apparently, Halls was saying that nothing was in it, as Halls later admitted to script supervisor Mamie Mitchell, which is the plaintiff. Before handing the gun to Baldwin, he checked the revolver drum and noticed that one round was different than the others. Red flag. People are just ignoring one red flag after another. And the worst thing is they're not communicating these red flags to another one so they can add up all the freaking red flags. He knows that 5 bullets were marked and 1 was not. Although this conflicts with his own statement, it's apparent that Halls either failed to check the gun or failed to voice his concern about the red flag. So either he didn't check it or he didn't say, hey, this one looks different. Which is both constitute negligence. I would agree on that. When receiving the gun, relying on Hall's representation that it was cold, Baldwin did as he always done and been taught to do throughout his career. So he's never been taught any differently. This is how he's supposed to do it. He An actor cannot rule that a gun is safe. That is the responsibility of other people on the set. In this instance, Gutierrez, Reed, and Halls. If actors open their own guns, the armors have to come over, repossess it, clear it. To Baldwin's knowledge, several other actors on the Rust set followed the same process, relying on appropriate crew members' representation that the gun was cold. Baldwin does not have his gun license, is not a gun owner, is not a professional weapons expert. So he's saying, I don't know that much about guns. They're the experts. I was relying completely on them, which is a good argument, in my opinion. That's why they're there. Baldwin, like Hutchins and others on the set, reasonably placed his trust in cross-defendants, experts that other people had hired. So he threw in that other right there and said they're experts, which could make them have to be held to a different standard than other individuals. Then they look at the camera angle and they're looking at it. He pulls the, they wanted to get a certain camera angle. He pulls back to cock the gun, prepare the camera angle. And then she told him to point the gun higher and then pull the trigger. And obviously we all know what happened. Baldwin asked Hutchins whether she wanted him to cock the gun, and she said yes. And they were seeing how it looked. And obviously, like I said, we all know what happened. Struck her and then struck Souza. One individual suggested that a stone might have been lodged in the gun and discharged. Baldwin thought that Hutchins may have fainted or had a heart attack. It was probably such a hectic scene. The idea was quickly dismissed. You realize, oh, the plaintiff. This is great stuff for Baldwin's case, especially as a defense against the plaintiff, Mamie Mitchell. Apparently, she said, you realize you're not responsible for any of what happened in there, don't you? So he can actually use that at trial to show that, she's saying it's Baldwin's fault, but you can take this statement that she said originally that said, no, Baldwin, it's not your fault. You know that, don't you? So they can use that at trial. That is very interesting. Yet, Mitchell is now suing Baldwin in this action. Transported to the hospital. They all were talking, interviewing, and Baldwin was finally able to recognize what really had happened. And then down here, apparently, hey friends, just a reminder, we need to do safety meetings in the morning, especially on stunt days. Okay. Duh. It's interesting that they included these in here. Oh, but this one's big right here in green. Zachary did not air these concerns that he had serious reservations about Gutierrez Reed's performance, including regarding her alcohol use away from the set. I think she was so drunk that she didn't know she brought live ammunition onto the truck when she went to go get a gun from the safe. That is pretty big. Was she using alcohol on the job? I don't know. I told you Hannah was black out drunk last weekend, right? Weekend in quotes, probably because their weekend's a little different because they're shooting on Saturdays. Zachary also noted that she was aware that Gutierrez Reed was using marijuana in her free time. Do you think that has any effect? And then they fingerprint on the ammunition box. They go through that. And then he kind of just says, over the last year, Baldwin has suffered substantial damage as a result of the events. He has suffered physically and emotionally from the grief caused by these events. Not a day goes by that he doesn't think about and suffer from the events that happened that day. Like I said, I could not imagine living with that. That would be tough. And so part of me feels for him. Part of me also puts some of the fault on him. Let me know what you guys think on that. So his first cause of action, he's got negligence. We already went through all of this. So we're going to jump down to his prayer for relief. He's asking for compensation, punitive damages. So he's asking for a jury to award money over and above the damages that he can prove to punish the defendants for their wrongdoing, to prevent them from doing it in the future and prevent for other people from doing it in the future and being reckless. So very interesting. That's what we got. He filed this on November 11th, so it just happened. And we will be looking out for all the answers that the cross defendants will file in response to this, see what they say. Let me know what you think about this and if Alec Baldwin should have any blame for this. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. So this is actually my second time shooting this. Yesterday, the microphone decided not to work. So we're rolling today. I see the bars on here. So let's get started.